Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are pleased to have Amy Dalton with us here today to speak about virtual reality. I'm excited. I would like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. This webinar is provided as part of the Library Trends and Hot Topics series. To register for other webinars available for this series or for other trainings available, see the Indiana State Library's calendar, which can be found on our website at library.in.gov under Services for Libraries. For a full list of our current in-person training menu, you can also see our continuing education website. The Indiana State Library has many ways that we try to stay connected to library staff across the state. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word. We also offer a blog which provides information about the Indiana State Library's collections, as well as interview spotlights on library staff from across the state and information about upcoming events at the Indiana State Library. If you are having sound issues during the webinar, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box. If there is a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat box. If you are unable to resolve the sound issue that you are experiencing, we are recording this meeting, thank you Lisa, and you can watch it offline after the meeting has ended. Again, if there is a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in the chat box. At this time, we are not experiencing any global sound issues. Today's webinar will be archived and available to access and share on the Indiana State Library's archive training page. I wanted to let everyone know we are doing a new thing with LEUs for webinars. To get your LEU from this webinar, you need to remain on the webinar until the very end, and there will be an opportunity for you to download a PDF that you can then print out and write your name on it. So that's how we will do that. So Amy and I are going to get set over here, and then we will get started.
Hi, my name's Amy Dalton, and I'm at Johnson County Public Library in Greenwood. And we got started using virtual reality because we did a very large STEM fair at Enderson Hauser, which is one of our local businesses. And we had a booth set up, and we had a variety of STEM activities. And I went ahead and purchased some of the very inexpensive Google Cardboard headsets. And we shared those with all of the kids at the STEM fair. It's over 700 middle schoolers that attend. So our booth was really busy, and we were just out of control, and the VR was a very, very popular part of our booth. Kids just loved it. They would put on the headsets and just be transported. So it was a lot of fun, and we started doing more programming with just the cardboard headsets at our branch.
Amy, I'm sorry, before you continue, do you want to tell them a little bit about who you are and what your job is?
Oh, of course.
We forgot that
part. I figured nobody cared. No, I'm an adult librarian at Johnson County, and I do all the adult programming, and I also do teen and family programming with our young adult services and our juvenile services department. We all sort of pitch in together. I'm sure people who are at smaller systems get that. So we end up doing a lot of each other's programming. It just so happens you kind of have to pitch it for all ages.
Great, thanks.
So why would you want to VR at the library? Besides it being a lot of fun, we are often the first place people go for new technology. We had our public computers out before a lot of people had home computers. We have our e-readers, we had tablets, and it's just another way to introduce our public to new technology. It also gives you the chance to have your patrons interactively explore things. You can bring a lot of things to life for your patrons, and that's adults as well as teens and kids. It engages even reluctant users. It's a draw for the library, especially some of those harder audiences, maybe the 20-somethings, the new adults, can get them into the library, and maybe you can use it as bait, and and then you can show them all of your other services. And it can also be physically active as well as mentally active. There are different programs that you can use for different types of motions, dance, even running and fitness. And so it's really nice. It's also nice to use with your older populations. When the Wii came out, we were doing a lot of the Wii games, the Wii bowling and things with some of our seniors. Well, this is another way to engage your seniors, and they really do enjoy it once they get over that initial, technophobe fear. So there are a lot of reasons that you'd want to try it at your library, and you can do it at all kinds of different levels.
I wanted to share quickly my reluctant story about VR because I'm certainly a reluctant VRer. I really was kind of like, oh, it's not for me. I don't want to do it. And that might be what some patrons experience. But then once you get the thing on, you don't want to take it off.
No.
You know?
Especially if you get something really good that's really engaging.
Yeah.
Just a brief introduction to how it works in case you haven't really looked at it before. The headset uses split screen. It's sort of like an old stereopticon or a Viewmaster. So you have the two slides. It fills your entire field of vision, and then that's what tricks your brain into immersing you into that environment. Also, there are sensors and motion controllers, and different systems do this in different ways that help track your movements, that let you actually interact with what you're seeing. Handheld controllers let you virtually pick objects up, but some of the lower level VR systems use head and eye tracking, and that also lets you look around, all around you, up, down, back, sides, and move through your images. And that's the 360-degree images. That lets you turn around so that you can see the whole thing. And it literally will trick your brain into thinking that you are really surrounded and in the illusion. Disney has been doing this for a long time. I don't know if anybody went to Disney back in the 70s and 80s and did the Monsanto theater where everybody stood in a little corral and the image was projected all around you and you felt like you were marching in a group of soldiers and different things. I mean, that was way back. It might have even been the 70s.
I think they have that still in Epcot in Canada.
Yes, they still. You're still in the Mounties. Yeah. I remember it when I was little, and they have all the rides now, even at the arcades, where you sit in the booth and it rattles back and forth, and the image is in front of you, and it feels like you're on a roller coaster, and it actually moves the seat. VR just takes that sensation and actually, with each iteration of the technology, it just improves it more so that you feel that you're more immersed, that you're more part of the scene, part of the vision. What you need for VR, a headset, and this can either be, a cardboard headset that's just a couple dollars, all the way up to a more expensive system. If you're using a Google Cardboard-based headset, that actually is app-based, so you'll need a cell phone that has some sort of internal gyro. The more modern smartphones have them. Probably anything within the last 5 or 6 years will have that. That's what will sense the motion so that you can move your head and move throughout that environment. If you have a PC-based headset, you will need a computer that is powerful enough that fits the specs for your headset. Currently, that is a pretty advanced gaming computer, but as time goes on, those specs are going to be lowered. The new Microsoft headsets are supposed to be able to work with a less powerful computer, so there's a chance that the price will keep dropping even for a PC-based headset.
So does that mean that if someone is interested in doing this, they might have to buy an additional computer?
They might. It really depends on the specs of the system that you're using.
Okay.
If you just want to give people a taste of VR, the cell phone VR, it's getting more advanced by the day, and it's still a lot of fun to demo, and it does a lot of the things that the more advanced VR does. So, you can always start small and work up. Also, some headsets have external sensors. Some track using cameras, and some track using other, I think they call them towers or lighthouses, and that will actually track your full body movement. You can also get handheld controllers, and that's what allows you to pick things up and interact with objects in your VR environment. You can also, if you're using cell phone VR, you can get an inexpensive controller that's a handheld controller, so that you can use that also for moving and picking things up, even with cell phone VR. And those kits, the Google Cardboard, if you want a cardboard box style cell phone VR headset, they're just a couple bucks. But you can get the plastic headsets that are more durable with the remote controller for around $25 if you look. So we aren't talking a huge investment to get your library started if you want to start with cell phone VR. And cell phone VR works really well if you're doing outreach, because then it's just a lightweight little thing that you can just throw in a bag and take with you. Some options for headsets. Again, cell phone VR, that actually works through apps. Most of the apps are free. There are some paid ones, and it works on Android and Apple phones if they are more a current smartphone with the gyro. It's very inexpensive. The cardboard headsets, you can even get those through Staples printed with your library logo. They're only a couple bucks a piece. It's really nice if you're doing a VR program to use those as giveaways. The people can make them and download an app and get started right then. We've done that at our library, where we did a little intro to VR, and then we gave everybody the cardboard headsets, and they made them and started playing with them right away. So that is a very inexpensive way to get started, to give your patrons a taste. You do not need a PC or gaming console. It just goes through a cell phone. And again, super, super inexpensive. If you want to, ramp up to get a plastic headset or two, again, they're also very inexpensive. The Samsung Gear is a cell phone-based headset that's just a little more powerful. It is powered by the Oculus system, so you get a lot more games than just the app-based games through the Samsung Gear store. You can also set it up so it'll play all the Google Cardboard apps. That's fine too, but it only works on Samsung phones. So you have to have a specific phone to match with your headset. It is a little more expensive, and the games are more expensive, the different pieces of software, but again, you can get a lot more popular games, and that does include Minecraft, which is a really popular game that has a lot of library applications. Some libraries are using it in non-VR now to do different kinds of construction and physics and different things. Minecraft clubs, I see those at library programming all the time. So this is a way that you can actually walk through your Minecraft creation. Daydream is a similar system. It was made by Google, so it only works with Google Pixel phones. The nice thing about Google Daydream is it's super comfy. It's actually a foam and fabric covered headset, so it's like wearing a big cushion on your head instead of plastic or a cardboard box. So it is really comfy. It, of course, is compatible with cardboard apps, but they have made special Daydream apps, and those are growing by the day. Their biggest draw right now is the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them app. You do get to go, into Newt Scamander's case and walk through all of the Fantastic Beasts. So that's one of their big draws now. And a lot of times, if you do upgrade to a Pixel phone, they will throw in the Daydream headset for free. So it's just another option, but again, you're tied to only using the Pixel cell phone.
So that's not like any Android. It's a specific
No,
one.
it has to. It only works. The Daydream software only works with their Pixel branded phones. I think there's 2 models out right now, so it is pretty limited. But I only mention it because some people may have upgraded their cell phone and gotten a free one, and so it's another option. The Oculus Rift, that is a PC-based headset. It's fairly expensive. But it has very high quality and very good controls. They have the touch controls so that you can pick things up in your world, manipulate them, shoot bows and arrows, whatever you're going to do. And it uses camera sensors. So you set up a couple cameras that record your movement, and that's how it tracks where your body is in this virtual world. It has a lot of content. Games are a little pricey, and you do need a pretty decent gaming PC to run the software, just to run the Rift software. When you use a PC-based headset, you are wired into the PC. Now, the wire's really long, so it's not like you're going to reach the end of your tether like a dog in the yard and snap back. It's not like that, but that's why you need the PC. You're actually wired to it, and you are kind of limited to the range of the cameras. So when I say move through the environment, you aren't walking miles and miles in space. A lot of times you're walking or jogging in place, which sounds really odd. And it does look odd when you see people doing it, but when you're in the headset, it makes sense. It's, again, if you think back to the Wii, if you've ever played any of the Wii sports and you're jogging in place, shaking your controller up and down to get miles, it's similar to that. And when you're doing it, it doesn't seem odd at all. It just seems like, oh, it's another part of the game. The HTC headset. It's a wonderful option. It has a ton of content, again, available on the Steam platform. Oculus has content available on the Steam gaming platform, and they also sell it through the Oculus store. HTC Vive, they have a lot of content on Steam. If you aren't familiar with Steam, basically it is a big, huge video game and other types of software, gaming software and educational software store. It's sort of open content. It's kind of, if you think of the App Store for a cell phone, it's like that for computer games. So people can create a game and then market it through Steam, similar to how people can create an app and market it through the App Store, either through Apple or through Google. So the game quality is real up and down, but there are ratings like the App Store. So if somebody makes a really dumb game, it will immediately get panned. People will review it immediately and say, this game's horrible, don't download it. So again, all that's sort of crowdsourced. It's like using Amazon for book reviews or anything else. So again, it's a platform where you can get a lot of computer-based games. And a lot of it's cheap, and tons of the content is free. You do need a good gaming PC with the HTC, and it is pretty expensive, but it does come with handheld controls, and it uses the Lighthouse Tower sensors, so you kind of set up this space where you put the lighthouses on the ground, and they sense where you are within that space and then transmit that information back to the game so that it knows where you're standing, how you're moving. And the handheld controls, again, allow you to pick things up. PlayStation VR works with a PS4, so if your library is already doing some gaming programs and has a PlayStation 4 already, then the headset just seamlessly works with that. You do need to have the handheld controls, and I did put the picture there because I think the PlayStation controls are so ridiculous. They call them ice cream cones, and I don't know, I just think that they look really ridiculous. I think that PlayStation's usually a pretty cool gaming platform, and I thought those were like incredibly uncool.
Well, I think they were cool, so I guess it depends on your audience.
It really does. I think they're adorable, but but when you think of the typical, gaming 20-year-old kid in his black T-shirt holding these ice cream cones is pretty funny.
Yeah, but like a grandma might like them.
Yeah, they're much less threatening.
That's true.
They are very attractive.
But you don't have to like them.
You don't have to like them. I love to see people using them because it does look like they are holding two pretty pink ice cream cones. You also need a camera with your PS4. Again, those two items though aren't that expensive. They don't have a ton of games yet, but because they are backed by Sony, they've already started with a lot of really good titles like Batman and Star Wars, and that, of course, is a really good draw for your library. Again, if you're already gaming with PlayStation, adding the headset isn't going to be too huge of an investment, and you can go ahead and start getting games right away.
We do have one question to clarify.
Sure.
She's asking, what do you mean by needing a camera?
Oh,
or what camera would work, maybe?
You will need just the little add-on camera that will hook into your PlayStation.
So it's a PlayStation camera?
Yes, and I believe you may not have to get it branded PlayStation. You just need to make sure that it'll work with your PlayStation. But this particular headset uses that type of camera to track your movements. Most of the time with the other headsets, the Oculus and the HTC, they track your movements using equipment that comes packaged with the headset. But in the case of PlayStation, when you get the headset, you also have to make sure that you have a camera. Microsoft Windows 10 VR is not out yet. It will be coming out hopefully for the holiday season this year. I mention it now because it's already been demoed at some of the big electronics conferences, so people have already seen it. It doesn't need any sort of base stations. It has a sensor built into the headset that in some magical fashion tracks your movements, which I don't quite understand. But it does it. It's like TV. I turn it on. I don't know how it works.
Can it give you cancer?
No, I don't believe so. It will work with less expensive computers and lowered computer specs. So again, I mention it because it's a good option, especially if you already have some nicer Windows 10 laptops in your system. It may be able to work with those. It will have different tiers of models, so there will be some lesser expensive headsets. The prices aren't out yet, so we don't know, but they are saying it will be less expensive, so I am believing them. And it has the potential to be what Xbox will use for its VR. They haven't announced that yet, but that is the speculation, is that it will be compatible with some version of the Xbox, and they will also be able to modify Xbox content. So it's a really good option. It also is rumored to work with a lot of games on the Steam that are already in the Steam store. Again, it's not out yet, so we don't know, but I'm basing this on some conference reports and some of Microsoft's sort of press releases. So we'll see what happens with it, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially if your library may be dipping its toe into VR, maybe later in the year or next year. It may be a less expensive way to go. I also want to mention the Razer open source virtual reality. That is actually, it was made by software developers, but they do have a nice headset that they recommend called the iWear, and there are a lot of games and different kinds of software being developed on this platform. It's similar to Steam in that it's open source, so people can develop their own games and then put them on this on the Razer website for people to purchase and play. So it's a little more technical, cutting edge than Steam. So people who are developing strictly virtual reality content are using Razer for that, just because the way that you create the virtual reality software to put on this platform is a little more advanced, so you can do more stuff with it. It does work with Steam games and can unofficially be modified to work with Oculus Rift content. And there are instructions for that on the Razer website, actually. So these are all, when I say it works with Steam and Vireo and Dolphin, those are other virtual reality content providers where you can go and people have created this content, and that's where you can purchase it or get it for free. A lot of it's free, surprisingly. Fove VR, that is another new headset option. Its big deal is that it uses eye tracking, not head motions or body motions. So it's very good for people with limited mobility. It also is known for having amazing clarity, and it has its own games as well as working with Steam games. So this is sort of your option for people with a lot of limited movements, because you can move through the content just by looking instead of actually turning your head. So anyway, that's that one. I'm just throwing it out there because you'll see it come up. It's coming up more and more. People who are really into VR love it because it is very clear. The lenses that they use are very high quality. And I want to mention specifically Viewmaster, because don't rule them out. They have very inexpensive, like $20 headsets. They're super durable because they're made for kids, so the library application is very good, works with most phones. It's almost always on the best budget VR headset list because they're really well made, and they're only about $20, $25, $30, depending on if you can find a sale at Toys R Us or not. They have a new model that came out this Christmas that has even more updated optics, and it's a really good, if you ever thought that your library might want to circulate a headset, this might be the one I'd go for just because of its durability being made by a toy company. Viewmaster also has its own content. Again, the content that they provide you can use with Google Cardboard. Viewmaster is a cardboard-based system, so it runs all the Google Cardboard apps and also the iPhone VR apps in their store. But they do create their own content as well. And when you purchase the Viewmaster, you actually get those. It's as a physical game that you can transfer to your phone, and people say that it's a little more stable than the app. I don't know that for sure because I don't have one, but I have used the Viewmaster apps and I haven't had any problems with them, so I don't know about that stability issue or not.
I just want to mention, I'm sure they have brand loyalty from people that are my age who loved their Viewmasters when I was little. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, maybe I do like VR.
Yes, and they're red too, so they're super cute. So what are you going to do with this headset that you now have? You can watch videos in 360 and in 3D. YouTube has a whole section of content on their site specifically for VR headsets that you can stream through your cell phone, or of course you can also through your PC if you have a PC-based headset. You can play super immersive games, again, so that your motions, you can actually physically walk through an environment, you can interact with items. One of the games that I thought would be the least fun that ended up being the most fun, there are some job simulators. I know it sounds terrible. It's like,
sound fun.
I know, why do I want to pretend I'm working at McDonald's? Those days are behind me. But they make the games really fun and sort of challenging to keep up with making burgers or whatever game you happen to be doing. And kids really love them. So it's a really fun application to use with kids. And again, you can actually pick things up. You have to physically make a hamburger. You have to physically make a shake and give it to your customer. You can also do super silly things like, throw the burger at their head, or you don't have to do your job well in Job Simulator. So kids really do enjoy that. You can walk through destinations and places, and not just places on Earth, although Google Earth does have an app where you can walk around. There are all sorts of apps where you can walk through pyramids or walk through Tuscany, which is actually very lovely and peaceful. But you can also walk through places like Mars or inside the body. And there are a ton of these anatomical apps that are used by med students and biology students, but they come in all different levels. So there are also some that are more cartoon animation style that aren't as graphic, that are really cool to use with kids. If you're doing your story time on, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or parts of the body, you can add that on and have the kids actually, go through parts of the body. So, they can look inside an ear using the headset. So it's really fun. And some of the places are actually based on like the Mars rover footage, so it's actually Mars, it's not a mock-up, and also the footage that they have gotten from Pluto.
That's amazing.
I know, right? So you get to walk around Pluto.
I mean, like, I was excited about Mars, but when you said Pluto, I was like,
everybody wants to see little Pluto.
Okay, all right.
No, it is. It is really fun. It's really cool. And again, all ages actually love that. For cell phone VR, you can actually use an app. One of the major ones is called Trinus VR and TriDef 3D. You put the TriDef on your PC, and the Trinus VR is an app for the phone. Then you can wire your headset to your PC, and it makes your little cell phone and your little cardboard box $3 headset work like a more high-end PC-based headset, and you can play Steam games and Minecraft and other PC games. It's a little bit pricey. I think the Trinus VR app is $30. I hate to say that for an app, but I'm pretty sure it is. But it's less expensive than a headset, and again, for, if you're budget constrained, as we all are, it's a really nice option if you want to use it for your Minecraft club or any of the other Steam content. It's an option, and it's not that hard. Again, you just put the app on your phone, you put the other app on the PC, you link them up. There's tons of instructions on their website. There's instructions on YouTube that actually walk you through step by step with the screenshots. And once they're linked up, you can play any 3D PC game that you already have and any of the VR content that you purchase from the Steam store or use for free from the Steam store. And then you can virtually explore any of these games. And it just gives you more content for your cheapy cell phone VR. And there's also conversion software for PC headsets too. It just expands the gaming platforms that you can get content from. Content, again, is king. And with VR, there are tons and tons of platforms, but unlike PlayStation or Xbox, where you really can't mod it, you can't play a PlayStation game on an Xbox kind of thing, because a lot of this stuff is more open source, there's all these little tricks to get content from one sort of brand to another. And so that's all out there too. And I'm more than happy to go into that in more detail if anybody wants to contact me about it, because I have used Trinus to play Minecraft with my crappy cardboard box headset.
Nice.
So what kind of programming would you use in the library? I'm sure just sitting here, you probably already have things in mind, but I just thought I'd go over some things that I have done or plan to do in the future and that I've seen other libraries do. Of course, you can always just do a demo, a basic intro to VR. This is a really nice way, again, to draw people into your library. You can use the cardboard headsets, the inexpensive ones, as giveaways. You can demo different apps. Flying and roller coasters are ones that we have used at STEM fairs and at outreach events because it's quick, so you can turn over the headsets quickly, and you really get a lot of bang for your buck flying as a bird or a plane for a few minutes in VR. It really, you get all the gasps that you want when you demo the VR.
Do they?
No one throws up so far. I have to admit, though, there's one app where you're in a cave and there's this rope bridge kind of thing, and I close my eyes until that part is passed because I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm just not happy with that. It's a little wobbly rope bridge, and I do get a little motion sickness there. Tilt Brush and other art programs are also really good for demos. Tilt Brush is an art program where you're drawing in 3D space. So you don't even have a canvas. You literally are putting light onto the end of a brush, and it's kind of like you're painting with light in 3D.
So almost like the concept of a 3D printer.
Yes.
Right, in a virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Because
yes.
that just kind of blew my mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, these are really fun to do at outreach events because you can do a really quick demo and then turn the headsets over quickly. You can even film a VR tour of your library. This is something that you can, I'm sure some of you that have done this already with just using your cell phone app, you can do a 360 video that even people just looking at it, on their tablet or their cell phone can just use their finger and go 360 through your library or through a still photo. But you can actually use an app to film a virtual tour so that people are actually walking through your library. And that's also a fun one to demo at outreach. I have to admit the kids aren't as interested, but it is a nice way to promote your library in a fun way. And you can then upload that to YouTube so that, people who are new to your system or people from other libraries, other states, if they want to look at your library, they can do a walkthrough of your library. If you have a really nice old building or if you have a really cool special collection, this is a really good way to promote that as well. Art and other creative programs can be enhanced with VR. Some of the VR games that let you create in 3D, but there are also museum and artist themes. They call them walkthroughs that are kind of just where you put on the headset and you can walk through an environment. And ways to do this, you can explore a virtual artifact and then recreate it as a craft. So if you're doing, a basket craft, or if you're doing one of the pottery where people paint their pottery, or any of the other things that we sort of do as business as usual with our craft programs, you can add the virtual reality aspect to that and let people see a painting or a piece of pottery or a basket in the virtual reality. They can listen to the little spiel about its history, and then you can actually make it. And this works for all ages. So anywhere from kids up to your seniors, any of the craft programs we do, you can enhance it with that. You can, with music and dance programs, this lends itself perfectly. You can listen to music. You can then create using a virtual reality keyboard or drum.
That is crazy to me.
Right?
So, like,
how much fun?
So you put the headphone on and or headset on, and then you can see a piano in front of you?
Yes, and then you can interact with it.
Oh my god.
Sure enough.
Okay.
And even if you have the cheapy like Google Cardboard and it doesn't have the hand controllers, you can actually strike a piano or drum by nodding your head. And this is one that my son does, and I think, oh my gosh, when he grows up, he's going to have surgery because he'll just sit there and headbang playing the keyboard. But it is really fun, and that's, again, all ages. Everybody likes doing that. You can also, if you're doing anything about architecture or building, you can take a VR tour, or you can even use a sandbox program. That's sort of the gaming term for games like Minecraft or Lego or anything where you can build. They call it a sandbox because basically you start with an empty desert and you build whatever you want. So you can create a structure. This is fun to do with kids, especially your Minecraft kids. Even if it's not Minecraft, they can do like cooperative builds. Everybody builds one room in a house. That way you can turn over the headset quicker, so no kid, hogs it and builds an entire, city. But, you can share the VR, but then they also get to create this cooperative structure, and you can talk about architecture. If you're doing it with adults, again, it enhances your programming. And this also works, there's walkthroughs of all kinds of places, gardens, anything. So it just enhances your program. If you're doing, this is, my program on what flowers to pick for your garden, and then maybe at the end, if anybody wants to stay and do a little virtual tour, they can, and you can have that already preloaded. And that leads right into virtual travel. When I do my book discussions, I always try and bring in pictures of the setting. If it's set somewhere, like if the book's set in Africa, I always bring in tons of pictures, just because I think it really brings it to life. So, you can haul out your headset and do a little virtual tour of wherever your book is set, and that really also helps, bring that to life for the book discussion. A lot of libraries, business as usual again, they'll do like, a night in Paris, and, you show a movie and have food and have the photo booth of the Eiffel Tower or whatever. Well, you can add the virtual reality tour as part of that program, and it just enhances it. It's one more thing to have, another station to have set up. These are actually really popular. We have patrons that ask for, when is your next night in wherever program. So it's just another idea. Any sort of cultural programming with your kids, if you do like a passport club or anything like that, again, they get to actually physically walk through it, hear the sounds. It's really fun. And you don't have to, of course, limit it just to places on Earth. Your space program, anything about that. If you do any kind of like weather programming, again, there are things where you can sort of, virtually be in the tornado or whatever. So it's just another way to enhance programming. It doesn't have to be the whole program. It just has to be a part of it. And of course, inside the body, anywhere people have filmed and converted as a virtual destination. There are lots of museum walkthroughs, and those are really fun to do.
Go into the ocean?
Go into the ocean, of course. Dinosaurs. Tons of virtual dinosaur programs. They're lots of fun. Some of them are a little scary, actually, but they're lots of fun. And again, that leads us into all of our science. We're all STEM focused now, right? And as it should be. So there are virtual safaris, virtual nature walks, and again, dinosaurs. Yes, that draws in lots of people, even grown-ups. Everybody loves a good dinosaur. There's lots of anatomy software. There's also a lot of physics games. One's called Bounce, and there are also things like, I believe it's called Fantastic Contraptions, where you can sort of build your Rube Goldberg machine and see how it works in virtual. And Bounce, again, it's a little game where I want to say it's kind of Angry Birds like, where you have to use physics to bounce and rebound off of things to score points. There are also chemistry games where the little atoms are floating around with their little electrons, and you can match them up. So if you see two oxygens floating around, you can hook them to a hydrogen and make a water molecule. Again, this is good to use with your school-age kids. If you're doing like a little periodic table program, or, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that advanced. If you read a story maybe about atoms and molecules, you can just kind of put this game in there, and it's fun for them to actually see it as a little introduction to chemistry. And there, again, there's tons of outer space applications. Some are better than others, so definitely check them out first, but the ones that use actual NASA footage, those are always the best. And you can fly around, you can fly through the solar system, can walk on planets, and this just really brings it to life for kids. Some programming tips: always test everything. I know you will, but if I didn't say it, I would be remiss. Also plan ahead with your time limits. Your equipment is probably going to be pretty limited. Even if you give everybody a cardboard headset, not everybody's going to have the phone or the app. When we do outreach, the one we did with the 700 kids, we only had 2 cell phones that worked with the headsets. So we were really getting people in and out quickly. So you kind of want to either preload an app that has a finished end time, or make sure that people know how long they get, set a timer. If you're just doing a demo, you could even have people sign up for a time slot, or if you're doing it as a drop-in, I plan on doing some drop-in demos. It's just sort of, there's people waiting in line, you have to go. So always be aware of that. Watch your group size. If it's a big giant group, again, you want to make sure that everybody gets a good turn and that it's equitable for everybody. People will hog it, I'm telling you now out of experience. So you need to sort of plan ahead what you're going to say. And you also want to have activities for people who are waiting. So it's good to have stations or have it part of a larger program, or if it is just a VR program and you're doing demos, make sure there's something else to do for people in line.
I have a question. So in my mind, if I was going to do a program at a public library, I've often thought, like, okay, so I buy 10 of the cardboard headsets, and then I'll just have the kids bring a cell phone. But there's probably some pitfalls with that.
Yes,
right?
Because they would have to download whatever app you're using, which means hopefully the parents have parental controls.
Yeah.
If it's a kid's cell phone, that you'd have to make sure that they all had done the override and to download the software.
And also having the right kind of phone.
And having the right kind of phone and that kind of thing. Now, you can always set it up ahead of time when people sign up for the program, hand them, a detailed instruction sheet, make little bookmarks with the instructions. This is the app that you need. I had just been reading about a summer reading program in England where they used augmented reality, which is another sort of VR component, and everybody who signed up for summer reading, if they wanted to do that part of it, had to download an app, and they just handed it out as part of their summer reading material. So you could make sure everybody was set up ahead of time, and just know that it's not going to work for everyone, and that everyone's going to have to share. So people who come in with a cell phone that works, maybe theirs will be the best one, and that'll be the one that everybody shares. And always check for new software. Items are added daily. When I updated this PowerPoint yesterday, I ended up adding like 3 or 4 new pieces of software that I hadn't seen before that had good reviews. I didn't even try them out, but they were just so cool looking. I thought, I'm going to put them on here. If you have any questions, just call or email. I'm available all the time. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to talk, period. So, I'm open, I'm friendly, I'm not scary. And then I did include this as just so that it would be here for people. Again, it's probably already out of date. I updated it yesterday. But I did include some suggested games and apps that I thought would work really well with programs. And I have 1 minute, so I will just very quickly call up some of my favorites. The Drum Kit VR on Steam is, of course, the one where you can virtually drum. Fantastic Contraption is, of course, where you can build your Rube Goldberg machine. The Lab is actually sort of a VR playroom. It's really good for demos. It sounds like a science lab. That's why I'm calling that out, and to tell you it's different. The Night Cafe, Vincent van Gogh, that lets you walk through the Night Cafe painting, which is really nice if you're doing, I know business as usual again, we do art programs with kids, and so you might do like a Starry Night program where the kids get a, finger paint, a big Van Gogh picture, and then you could have them walk through one of his paintings.
So cool.
Yes. There are some narrative films that are good to use. Kid Paint is like Tilt Brush, but it's more geared toward kids. And then cell phone apps, this is just a teeny tiny beginning, but there's a really cool engine one, that 4-stroke auto engine for STEM programming. It lets you virtually explore like a gas car engine. Again, all the Viewmaster ones, they work on any cell phone, even if you don't have the Viewmaster. There's some math where you get to virtually solve problems, and they actually have sort of physical blocks that you can move around to do the math. I'm running out of time.
Okay.
But anyway, this is just a good way to get you started.
Let's go ahead and put your contact information back on.
Sure.
We are at 50 minutes, but I'm happy to chat for a little bit longer. So does anyone have any questions for Amy? I know I've had the do we have questions up there in the chat box for a while. I don't see that people are asking questions, but people are still here. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that I was thinking about. It seems like if you're doing a program with kids and, you know, you've got that one good cell phone that you're sharing around, I would be concerned about, you know, somebody dropping it and breaking the screen that belongs to somebody else. Are those concerns that you've addressed in any way?
Actually, even the little dollar cardboard headsets really cushion the phone.
Yeah.
And what we found, again, it was trial by fire at that STEM conference with 700 middle schoolers. We found that we would get it all set up so really the participants weren't touching anything. We put the elastic, there's a little elastic head strap you can get that Velcros on. So we would literally strap the thing onto the kid's head. And then for the littlies, we would tell them, you know, keep your fingers on the sides of the headset to keep it pressed to your face. And we had no problems with it falling off or dropping at the demo.
And what about things like hair and lice? And that kind of stuff? Any thoughts on that?
You know, we just did not worry about it. We had the Lysol wipes, but a lot of times, if you're doing it at an outreach or a big group, you know, it's just you take what you get.
Yeah.
I have to admit, having the pop-up wipes there, if anybody felt they needed it, they could use it. And I won't lie, the cardboard headsets, you can't help it. They will get a grease spot on the forehead area, and you just have to let it go.
We also have another question. Do you have any thoughts on partnering with outside organizations to bring in VR programming?
Of course, and I should probably let Suzanne field this one because she has an option that will be available from the state library.
Are you talking about our LSTA grants?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know enough about that, but I know that you probably know more than I do. I know that LSTA grants are sometimes available for innovative technology programs, so if you wanted to fill out the LSTA grants for this, that might be something that might get funded. I don't know when the deadline is for that, or if it has just passed. I feel like we're sort of in the cycle, so that's the best I can do on that.
Yes, and also there are places like your local Best Buy or electronics store or GameStop. They will occasionally have demos there. I don't know if they could bring it off-site or not, but it's definitely worth trying. Also, you know, some of your local businesses are going to have VR just that they use for training, so that's always an option. Or if you have a patron that you know is really techie, maybe they've been in talking about it, they'd probably be willing to come in and, you know, maybe bring their headset and a laptop or whatever, and then you could do a demo.
I love that idea of reaching out to patrons because more often than not, there's hopefully going to be someone in your community that might be, you know, more excited about this than you are.
Yes, and I will say we have a patron that offered their 360 camera that they just bought for their own use to film a walkthrough of the library. So that was just an opportunity that fell in our lap that we actually, I don't even know how it came up. I think we had the cardboard headset out advertising a program, and they were like, oh, you know, I have that camera, blah, 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 and then we just partnered up with him. So you just never know what's going to happen.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Amy.